Hi guys, and welcome back to UKFlyFisher. Today you join us for another episode of Trout Talk Tuesdays, but before we get into the video, we'd just like to say a massive thank you for all the positive feedback on our first video. If you still haven't seen that video, there'll be a link in the description below, and as a thank you from us, we'll be doing a giveaway later in today's episode.
Yeah, since the first video went live, we've had lots of feedback, and the consensus is you'd like a video on Stillwater, so we come together with tips and tricks, little nuggets of wisdom to help you outfish 90% of anglers in your local area.
These are going to be general run-of-the-mill tips and tricks that can be used all across the UK. They'll see you going from a beginner and intermediate level of fisherman and progressing towards a more advanced angler. So without any further delay, let's jump in and see what Connor's got for tip number one.
Tip number one for me is an easy one, and that's to start early. Chances are if yours is the first fly on the water, the fish haven't seen another fly for up to 12 hours. This means they'll be less likely to be spooked, they'll be more confident feeding, and during the morning's a great time for trout to be feeding. So if yours is the first fly out there, chances are you'll catch a fish.
That's a great tip. Often I've caught my first fish before the rest of the people I'm fishing with that day have even set up. And that's because I go there knowing exactly what line and fly I'll use. I'll plan ahead, so that means within 3 minutes of getting to a venue, my fly is going to be in front of some hungry fish. And it's one that I witnessed working firsthand, and it's one that I practice religiously. So I highly recommend adding that to your armoury. Tip number two is to be mobile. This follows on nicely from tip number one because it has the same philosophy behind it. You don't want to flog an area to death, push the fish so far out that you can't reach them, and they'll be spooked there, they won't even be feeding. So what you want to do is you want to fish an area, you know the fish are there, with feeding with confidence, and then move on once they become scared and out further. As time goes on, they'll come back in and start patrolling the areas that you can cast to again. So you can always switch back to that hotspot later. A good way to do this would be to choose 3 or 4 hotspots that you know the fish are feeding in and rotate between them, giving each about 20 minutes, half hour, and then let it rest so the fish come back in close enough to cast to.
Being mobile also gives anglers equal opportunity to catch fish. It creates a more friendly fishing environment as no one likes someone who's going to hog the hotspots all day. Tip number 3 from me is to keep your fly selection simple. This is more advice for beginners and intermediates, but can also be great help to more advanced fishers, as most of you will spend more of your time at the line changing your fly than you will fishing the water. Most anglers will have 6 flies that they know work and will always revert back to those 6 anyway, so keeping a small selection will always help. For beginners and intermediates, we recommend 4 to 5 killer patterns, and we think that we've come up with the perfect product for this, and Gav will show you that now.
We certainly have. This is our small water essential pack, and it's got 6 proven killer patterns there that are going to help you catch all across the UK when you go into a stillwater fishery. We've got a couple of damsels, a cat's whisker, a nice black pattern there with a bit of green in, which always works well, and then a montana and a cruncher nymph. So something like this is perfect for a beginner because it doesn't overcrowd your box and doesn't give you too much choice, but they'll all catch fish. Unlike most small water packs out there on the market, ours have been tied to last, so as your skills improve and you become a better fly fisherman, you won't need to throw this away, and these will still catch you many fish. So moving on from flies, tip number 4 sees a quick fix for most of you out there, and that is to use fluorocarbon. It's a tip that I've seen work for myself, and last year we had an angler who joined us on many trips, and most of the time when me and my father-in-law were having our limit or having a good day, this guy was blanking. You know, a good day for this guy would be 1 or 2 fish. We couldn't quite figure out why. Later on that year we went to Elladine, and on day number 1 the same thing happened. Me and my father-in-law had 8 and 6 fish together, and this guy blanked. So we got back to the hotel we were staying at, and I asked him, I said, what fluorocarbon are you using? And he pulled out this sort of yellowy green nylon material of about 8 pounds, and I instantly clicked on them. Most of the fisheries we'd be going to were catch and release fisheries, so these fish are spooked fish, they've all been caught before, and they're quite line shy. So using something like Airflow's G-free, sight-free fluorocarbon really helps you get the fish because they can't see it in the water. It's practically invisible, and it's a tip we highly recommend using.
Yeah, certainly I agree. Since switching to a fluorocarbon, it's helped with my turnover, and I've been able to catch more fish and they've been less spooked, and it's really improved my fishing. Our next tips and tricks are going to be more advanced techniques that are simple little secrets that help 10% of anglers catch up to 90% of the fish. But now I think it's the perfect time for our giveaway, and as a thank you from us to you for all your support, we're going to be giving away a small Stillwater pack for you beginner and intermediate fishers, and 100 meters of G-free, sight-free fluorocarbon, which perfectly go along with this video, and Gav's going to tell you how you can enter to win this.
So next week we're going to be doing a Q&A video, so all you need to do to enter the competition is subscribe to our channel, like this video, and comment below with a question you'd like to see us answer. It could be anything to do with fishing, fly tying, or even something you just want to ask me and Connor ourselves.
So entering seems easy enough. Let's move on to tip number 5. Tip number 5 from me would be fish in the margins. These are usually more settled and less disturbed waters, as the other anglers will be fishing out as far as they can in multiple directions. They'll retrieve up until about 10 feet or so, then recast. This means that if you fish close to the other platforms or weed beds, you're more likely to catch fish that are feeding more confidently and less spooked.
These are usually great condition fish and they'll put up a good scrap. That's another reason why the hang is so effective, but that's something we're going to go over in another video. So tip number 6 shows us another way to get to water that's unfished and untouched by other anglers, and that's to add the double haul to your armoury. Using a double haul is a technique that often distinguishes a good angler from a great angler. You can add an extra 10 to 20 foot to your cast with ease when you learn a double haul, but it's quite a difficult technique to begin with. So we recommend going up to a field and practicing the double haul till you get it perfect, because you don't want to be disturbing the water when you're trying to learn a new technique. This will spook the fish and push them out further than you can cast. So go home, practice the double haul, and let us know how you get on your local water.
Tip number 7 from me would be to fish inflows, outflows and springs. They make great holding places for trout, and there's 2 main reasons for this. Reason number 1, the higher concentration of flowing water increases the oxygen content in the water. And reason number 2, it usually brings in high concentrations of food that the fish can feed on. This means they'll have to expend less energy hunting for their food, and they'll just sit and wait for the food to come to them. Often feeding these areas will hook you more fish, larger fish, because they're expending less energy to hunt.
That's a great tip. And now for our final tip, tip number 8, and that's to vary your retrieve. Now, there's many people out there who will do the same static robot retrieve over and over and over, and the fish will come wise to it and get bored of seeing the same thing over and over. By varying your retrieve, you're going to keep them on their toes. Often the best technique we found is a short pause followed by a speed up or quick figure 8, and that gets the fish's attention. It's like a cat and mouse situation. If the mouse sits still, the cat will sit still behind it. As soon as that mouse moves again, that's when the cat pounces. And it's the same with trout. So you want to mix up your retrieve and fool them into taking your fly.
Well, that makes a lot of sense, but do you have to vary every retrieve?
Well, I know a lot of people, when you say vary retrieve, they'll do a figure 8 followed by a strip, followed by a figure 8, followed by a slow figure 8, and they'll say I'm varying my retrieve. But what we suggest is varying your retrieve within each retrieve. So you may start with a slow figure 8, the odd pause, speed it up a bit, and varying it with every retrieve, you'll soon find out what the fish want on any given day. So if they want a slow figure 8, all you've got to do is incorporate that more. So you might slow figure 8, pause, slow figure 8, fast figure 8, slow figure 8, and you'll include that more in each retrieve. So when we say vary retrieve, we don't mean change every retrieve and keep to that retrieve the whole way back. We mean literally vary your retrieve within each cast.
Sadly, that's all we have time for. I know it's been a long video, but hopefully some of the tips and tricks will help you catch more fish and improve you as an angler. And don't forget to like, subscribe and leave a comment for next week's Q&A. Hopefully we can pick up some of the questions that you have from this week's video and other questions you have about fishing in general in next week's video.
Yeah, and if you did like the video, don't forget to smash that thumbs up button. It really helps us see what kind of content you guys are after. All that's left to say is thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Just like to say a massive thank you for the response on our first video. If you still haven't seen it yet, how loud do you want to be, mate? Wait for that lorry to go past and try again. Hi guys, and welcome back to UKFlyFisher. Today we have another Trout Talk episode for you, and no!
Trout Talk episode of Mental Breakdown.
So without further ado,
Further ado. How far is that due? Pretty far. Tip number 1's an easy one, but we can't say it. So.
Tip number 1 is simple. It's so easy, we're not going to say it. Tip number 2.
There are no rules in Fish Club. And they're less likely to be spooked, and they'll be more confident when they're feeding.
You almost did it! So close! So close!
Tip number 7 tip. Right, tip number 1. Tip number 1 is an easy tip, and that's to get out why you laugh?
So for tip number 2, we have be mobile. And a lot of the reasonings behind this follow on nicely from tip number 1. You don't want to... you do want to.
Tip number 2, be mobile. This can be yours for just $9.99. Fly than you will fish in the river. No, it could be fishing anywhere, couldn't it? It doesn't have to be a river.
Stillwater tips.
Tip number 3 from me is to keep your flies selection. Right, this is it. This is it. And if it is this one, we'll keep this in and show that I smashed it.
Well, no, this was it. So tip number 6 shows you. So tip number 6 shows. So tip number 6 sees us.
Caesar's here. We are not filming anywhere.
So tips up. I can't do number 6.
Say tip number 6. There's a higher oxygen
content. Fishy like breathe. Breathe make fishy happy.
Oh, is it raining?
Pouring down. My camera's getting screwed. Let's go, 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 film.